What is up, everybody, and welcome to CTW Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me today, Rob Haytayan, and of course, welcome on to the program, Carson Engine Throne. Now, folks, we got some news. Finally, after a couple dry weeks out there in Celtic Nation, and let's face it, too, the NBA community, we got some news today, folks. And here's the news. Per Shams Charania, the Boston Celtics are trading Georges Niang and two future second round picks to the Utah Jazz for rookie RJ Lewis Jr., sources tell ESPN. And then minutes later, another report followed up this report. The Boston Celtics again made another transaction per Shams Charania. Free agent forward Chris Boucher has agreed to a 1-year, $3.3 million contract with the Boston Celtics. Agent Sam Permut of Rock Nation tells ESPN Boucher lands a guaranteed deal with the Celtics and is expected to have a significant role in the front court. So the Celtics trading away the newly acquired Georges Niang. Of course, the deal with Kristaps Porzingis, we went in length. Everybody knows about that one. But now Niang on his way to the Jazz for RJ Lewis Jr., a two-way player. And then, of course, the Celtics signing Chris Boucher as a subsequent move. But looking at these two moves now after the Celtics were essentially quiet for nearly a month. The Celtics went through Summer League. We didn't hear too much. We heard about the waiving of J.D. Davison, the releasing of J.D. Davison. But now the Celtics make two more subsequent moves of that move. What are your guys' initial thoughts on these two moves? Rob, we'll start with you.
Financially, I love it. Right. There are so many advantages of getting Niang off the books from a financial standpoint. From a talent standpoint, I think it fits the mold of what Boston's trying to do next year, and that's find a gem in the rough. Clear RJ Lewis. I'm a big RJ Lewis fan. Went to St. John's myself for a little bit there. Watched him all last season with St. John. So I like the talent he brings offensively. I think that is a good guy that maybe you find something there. Niang, I thought from a talent perspective, brought Boston nothing. I'm not shocked he moved them. Boucher, bringing him in, I thought it's another flyer. It's a guy that's like relatively young, hasn't really gotten a real chance to get like this big time role. He's had a role in Toronto, but nothing spectacular. I like his frame. I like his versatility. I think he fits the Joe Mazzulla offense while presenting a switchable defensive versatility on that end of the ball. So I like it a lot. I think there is a lot of perks to this move, and I'm not really surprised by these moves. I think it fits what Brad in the direction the Celtics are trying to move forward next year.
Yeah, and you, Carson, what is your initial thoughts on these two moves, these two simultaneous transactions, the Celtics trading away Niang, and then of course signing Chris Boucher?
Well, I think first off, it saves them a lot of money, and then second off, it's honestly just it keeps them people thinking that like the Celtics are still trying to be competitive. They're not just throwing away guys. They're not just throwing out draft picks or anything. They are trying to be competitive, even without Jason Tatum's key role next year. And Chris Boucher, I think, is actually going to be a very important, significant role, like Shim said with being big in the front court. So I mean, he's going to play a big role, and that's what we needed because we need like a bigger front court, and I think we needed size especially. And I think that he can bring that to the team. And honestly, I didn't see like a big role happening with Georges Niang in the first place. So I mean, signing Chris Boucher to 3.3 mil and picking up 22-year-old RJ Lewis Jr., I think that's a big role also. I mean, it's not like a big thing at the moment, but I think he's going to be good in being a part of the program.
And you mentioned there, I mean, the Celtics made two moves in a row, and I think that's what's important here. Is the first move when the first move came out about, and the news came out about Georges Niang. I guess we don't have to get that right anymore. Georges Niang, right? When Georges Niang, the news of him moving out to Utah came out from Shams Charania, I think that really validated everybody in their stance of the Celtics might be mini tanking next year, right? They might not be full blown tanking, but they might be secretly tanking with that move because we looked at the Celtics salary sheet these last couple of weeks and $18 million away from the luxury tax line. That was a key number, right? That number is now at $12 million after these two transactions, which of course puts the Celtics a little closer and in range to actually get under that luxury tax line. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how the Celtics, to get to that actual point, it was going to take a lot. Yet now Niang, he was moved out the door for essentially nothing. I mean, a two-way player, and I hate to say this, folks, but RJ Lewis Jr., he's not a player the Celtics looked at and went, oh, we really like RJ Lewis Jr. They looked at him and went, oh, the Utah Jazz, you want to take on $8.2 million worth of Niang? Oh yeah, just give us a two-way player you just signed halfway through last season. Oh, just give us a two-way player. No, I mean that is not. It was a non-guaranteed deal in which the Celtics received in return for Niang, and it's to be seen if Lewis is even at training camp. I mean, the Celtics could waive Lewis well before training camp and not see any financial problem or see any problem when it comes to roster spots ultimately. So, looking at that deal, first off, the Celtics, when that transaction came through, the thought was, okay, this team is just being torn apart because of the luxury tax implications, because of the apron implications. Yet the Celtics afterwards go out and sign Chris Boucher. And yes, that move right there, the Celtics are cutting salary by $5 million. I mean, they're going from $8.2 million worth of Niang to $3.3 million worth of Boucher. But it's almost a transaction, the two simultaneous transactions are almost it almost makes one transaction and almost makes up a trade, right? It's almost as if the Celtics traded Niang and his $8.2 million for Chris Boucher's $3.3 million. And that's how these two deals essentially, how these two transactions essentially need to be looked at from Celtic Nation, because that's essentially what the Celtics did. They picked between $3.3 million of Chris Boucher or $8.2 million of Niang. And we all know the path the Celtics took on that, because we all know the story about the Celtics front court right now and what's going on with the big man core. And Boucher, does he really supplement that for the Celtics? A little bit, but he's only 6'9". He's not going to be a true center for the Celtics. You can flex him at center, right? You can play him at the 5, but he's going to be primarily a 4 and playing in that position. Now, we all know too that this season there's going to be a lot more of the Celtics experimenting with, say, Chris Boucher at the 5 and maybe double big lineups with Boucher and Garza. There's a lot of versatility there, and just mixing and matching the players who are already there. But Boucher doesn't do a ton to the big man rotation. He's not a Porzingis, but he does fulfill a need for the Celtics, an immediate need. Whereas Niang, you could have made an argument that Niang, there was a little bit of a caked forward rotation there, but Niang was one of the better forwards on the Celtics roster. And when you looked at the rest of the forwards, you're talking about guys like Jordan Walsh and Josh Minot in that forward rotation. Now you'd expect them, if they actually make the roster, to maybe see a couple more minutes this season. But after this deal, I mean, I would say, did the Celtics actually get better, right? That's the question that I ask after this, because the Niang deal, right, when that came through, we're all looking at that going, all right, the Celtics just stripped away another piece of talent for luxury tax purposes. Yet when they added Boucher, everybody went, okay, that makes a little more sense right there, the simultaneous transactions. But after the whole ordeal, right, the Celtics shaving away $5 million, obtaining Chris Boucher and letting go of Niang, did the Celtics actually get better? That's my question to you guys.
I think it's tough to say. I think in terms of, did they add wins onto their total next season, if we want to get like analytical with it, probably not. But did they improve in areas in which they needed to? I would say so. I think the Boucher addition is an area in which Boston was lacking versatility at that forward spot. While Niang might be a more veteran seasoned player, he's seen some action, seen some playoff minutes, hit some big shots, I guess. Boucher, I think, gives something Boston needed, right? Is that 4-5 hybrid, that defensive look, that stretch 4. I think Boston can use Boucher way more than they could use Niang. Niang was like you said, you had Hauser, you had Shyman, who were kind of like identical style of players, where offensively they could knock down some shots, but defensively, what did they really bring? There was no versatility on that end. So I think they improved in the fact where they got pieces that filled gaps, Lewis included. Now, I'm high on Lewis. I mean, he was the Big East Player of the Year last year. I do believe there's upside to him. I don't know if he'll be rostered on the Celtics again. That's a whole other question. But even bringing in Lewis, I would rather have Lewis within the Celtics organization than Niang. I think there's something there that Boston doesn't have with Lewis that they just had a plethora of with Niang. So did they add more wins? No. Did they improve in areas in which they lacked? I'd say so, yes.
And Carson, do you believe the Celtics actually got better today?
I don't think. I mean, I think they might have gotten better a little bit, but if anything, I think they added to their depth because I didn't really see like a fit role for Georges Niang on the team. Whereas Chris Boucher, he's more of a 4 or 5 player at 6'9", 200 pounds. Like he can benefit the team. He can stretch around the 4 or 5 with Keita and those bigger guys. Where Georges Niang, I just didn't really see a set role for him. And I think giving Chris Boucher the minutes over time, we can see what he does for the team, how he plays around the team, how he plays with other bigs on the floor like Keita and Garza, and see how that all plays out. But I think the Celtics in general just have a lot of experimenting to do with Chris Boucher and a lot of the pieces they've added this summer.
Yeah, I there's something to be said about redundancy and roster balance, right? Because that's been a huge. I mean, it's been a talk about basketball construction when it comes to roster construction for a long while, but ever more so recently is you don't want to have redundant players on your roster, which I know a lot of people will say when I mention that, people point directly to Simons and Pritchard and go, "Well, what is this over here? What is going on with this redundancy?" But the Celtics within their rotation, we've talked about it all summer. The big man core is light. I mean, there's not much there. There are a bunch of unproven players, and we're hoping, maybe another 1920 season comes around where Daniel Tice and Enes Kanter randomly, they spurted out and they were good that season. Maybe we can find that in Keita and Garza this season. That's a theoretical hope for the Celtics, right? And ultimately, Chris Boucher is now going to come into the team and supplement that big man core a little bit. Now, he's not the answer. To me, he's not really the answer. He's not the Kristaps Porzingis answer that everybody wants, because that's what everybody's become accustomed to, right? Robert Williams, one of the defensive player of the year candidates, right? And that transitions into Kristaps Porzingis, and people are expecting a legitimate starting center on the Boston Celtics. That is not Chris Boucher. I think people are overhyping Chris Boucher just a little bit as that guy at this moment in time, when he could easily be a bench player for the Celtics. He may start. He may start. That's another conversation. He may start, but he also may be a bench player for the Celtics. And Niang, this is where I don't know if the press conferences, I'm done with them. All right. I'm absolutely done. Brad Stevens, I hate to call him a liar, but had a million great things to say about Georges Niang, and all of a sudden he's shipped out to the Jazz for absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And the Celtics cut $8 million and then eventually replaced part of that $8 million with Chris Boucher in the $3.3 million. The Niang to Boucher movement, did it make the team better? I don't think
I
it's
think
really a move, and I think it made the team slightly better from a eliminating roster redundancy, adding to where there was an immediate need, right?
right.
But when you're going player to player, Boucher to Niang, would you rather have Boucher or Niang on your team? I think a lot of Celtic Nation would want Boucher over Niang
Yeah.
simply because of the emotions behind the two players. But when it comes to the two players, Niang, Boucher, which one do we really? I mean, the contracts make it clear: $8.2 million for Niang, 3.3 for Boucher. You're taking that 3.3 any day of the week if you're the Celtics over that 8.2 from Niang. But when it comes to player for player on court, I did like what enticed me about Niang was, number one, his toughness, the whole grit and grind part of Niang, the whole, he's been a pest to the Celtics in the past. Well, now he can be a pest for the Celtics in the future. And of course, we've seen the last two seasons, even though the Celtics were champions in 2024 and had and owned the chance to win the title in 2025, the Celtics just lacked a little bit of physicality, lacked a little bit of grit at times, and I thought Niang was going to bring that back into the building. Well, we never get to see that opportunity now with Niang moving on to Utah. Furthermore, his three-point shooting. Niang's one of the more efficient three-point shooters in the league, and that those enticing things about Niang now fall through for Chris Boucher, who is 32 years old. He'll be 33 midway through next season. He's on a minimum deal. He does fill an immediate need for the Celtics, but in the long run of what the Celtics have on their roster, Niang, Boucher, I gotta say I'm almost more of a Niang guy, but for $5 billion more, I don't know if I can justify that.
Well,
I
and
think
here's
that's
my
where the
thing.
Celtics were at in this deal, essentially.
The only thing holding me back on being all in on Boucher is his availability. He's been like a 17-minute per game player kind of his whole career. And he's kind of sat around 50 to 60 games played each season, which again is worrisome. I came on the record with Porzingis, and the reason why I want him out of here was because next season availability is so important with Tatum out of the lineup. You can't afford to have guys rest or miss time. But I'm interested to see what Boucher can look like from a production standpoint with more minutes, because he's been like 17, 20 minutes per game, and the production's there. He's right around 10 to 12 points per game, right around 4.5 to 6 rebounds. Like, he can be productive within his role, which to me, that's what's so enticing about him is not only is he versatility, but he's been doing it with very small stints within the Raptors rotation. What does it look like if Boucher gets 30 minutes a game? What does it look like if he's in the starting lineup? And to me, that's what's so nice with Boucher is he fills in that starting 4 position that you really hurt without Horford there. And obviously I'm not going to come out here and say he's the Al Horford replacement, but him slotting at that 4 slot in the starting lineup is really intriguing to me. Him alongside Keita, alongside Brown, White, and either Simons or Pritchard. If I had to put my money on it, I'd go Simons. I think that's a lineup that can be right around bottom of like 6, like 5, 6, 7. I do think there is something there with Boucher that's much more significant than Niang. I think Niang's defensive lapse was so bad. I do think there's a reason he's been a journeyman for these past 2 years. Like, he hops around for a reason. Boucher's a guy that has been in a system now for 6 or 7 years. Like that's something, right? There's a reason the Raptors wanted to keep him for so long, and the reason why Niang has been jumping around ship now for the past 2.5, 3 years.
And that brings up the question too of what are the expectations of next season exactly after a move like this? Because again, with the first move, the Niang move, I'm looking at that move going, this just opens up the floodgates for everybody. I mean, the validation for everybody who thought the Celtics were going to tank next season and not be competitive. That move right there, that Niang move, when you trade Niang for nothing, that signals, okay, white flag. We are definitely not going to be competitive. We are trading away talent in purpose of the luxury tax, right? But then the Celtics make the Boucher move, and I think that makes everybody feel a little bit better. But where does that exactly put the team? Because beforehand, I think people, even with Niang on the roster, right? The roster coming into today, there was some hope from people, maybe including myself. All right, I'm going to include myself in this conversation, that maybe the Celtics could achieve a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Maybe they could be a little frisky, be a little bit competitive, right? Maybe be above that play-in. You know, the average where people see the Celtics, the average is about play-in, right? And the Celtics, they're probably not going to be in the lottery. They're probably not going to be at the top of the East, maybe the play-in range. But there's some hope that maybe the Celtics, with their rotation and some of their versatility, and even, let's face it, star power, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard still on the roster, even Anthony Simons, if you want to mention him. I mean, those are 4 guys right there who could make an all-star team in any year if they actually put up the points. Let's face it, the points are big when it comes to the all-star team. Maybe not the all-NBA team, but the all-star team. Those 4 guys right there, the star power exists on the Celtics for maybe a more frisky run than people actually thought was capable, or at least the Celtics team was capable of. Looking at the situation now, other moves could be on the way. The Celtics are still $12 million over that luxury tax line, but what are the expectations now for the roster heading into next season? Have they really changed with this move at all?
I think personally that they've done enough to just get by with their front court at this point. Like in 2024, 23, like we saw them try to put together the pieces for that championship roster when they won in the summer of 2024. This summer has been more of just like a rental type of summer where they're just adding these pieces, and it's really just to get by because of how much we've just let go. Like Porzingis, Horford, those guys were and Cornette to the Spurs. Like those guys, these people like Boucher that bring in Niang and then getting rid of him, Boucher, these are all like rental pieces that are really just keeping us somewhat competitive for the next season. But like what you said, I think it's really important that the Celtics nation does not that they don't forget about the star power that we have on the team, because while our front court, like it's obvious right now, it's not great. We got Cato, we got Tillman, we got Amari Williams, Luka Garza. It's not a great front court. No one's going to look at that on paper and say, "Wow, that's a great front court." But it's enough to get us by now with Boucher, that to the point next season where we can rely on our stars in White, Pritchard, Brown. We can rely on them and at least have role players around them that could take us, hopefully, like you said, maybe to a top 5 spot, if not maybe a play-in 6 or 7 seed spot.
And let me rephrase this too. Is all hope lost for a top 4 seed? Right? Is
Absolutely
all
not.
hope lost? Because the Niang trade, I'm going, all hope is lost. I'm texting everybody going, this is ridiculous. We gave away Niang for nothing. We're not, a top 4 seed is not happening. A top 5 seed is not happening. We just gave away Niang for nothing. Then we go out and get Boucher, and I'm going, maybe. But is all hope lost? Is all hope
I mean,
lost?
for me,
No.
the East might be in like a 2016-17 year where Boston, we actually got the first seed winning 53 games that year, where it's just like from a talent pool perspective, it's just atrocious. Orlando, Cleveland, you don't know what you're going to get at Cleveland. I mean, New York maybe, but I mean, it really is a wide open East. Will I rule out a top 4 seed? No. Expectation wise, I think it's unfair to even put any expectations on this team. I think they truly have and are going to enter the year with no expectations. I believe this is a team that could, genuinely speaking, be a 13th seed, or they could also be like the 3 seed. I do believe there is anything on the table. Anything is possible right now with this team. Carson, I love your point about the big man rotation, because I honestly think that's the X factor coming into the year, right? Because if you have something within that core of like Garza and Kada and Amari, I'm hesitant to even throw Xavier Tillman into the
Tillman, man.
How has he survived this long? Like
I don't
everyone is gone. Horford is gone. Cornette is gone. Porzingis is gone. Drew is gone. Tillman remains.
I just can't think of a
Tillman
world.
survives.
I can't
I
think of
hate
a
to.
world
I'm
where
not going to
Cornette.
compare. He's not a cockroach, right? But he's given the vibes of the durability of a cockroach, right? He's not a cockroach, but the durability of one. That's Tillman.
You know, I don't even want to throw his name in there. I don't know how he's still here, but if you can get something from at least 2 of those guys, one of those guys, you like again enter Boucher now, then I think you have like a East competing team, right? I don't think they can touch the top of the West, but in terms of like mixing it up with in the first, second round, and then maybe you run the table and you enter like you just don't know with how bad the Eastern Conference is. So in terms of expectations for next year, I'm not going to put any on these guys. I think it's unfair to them because of 1, no Tatum, and 2, I don't necessarily think the roster is set. I still have a feeling there's another move to be made. That's another conversation I know we'll get to, but yeah, I think anything's on the table with this team. I mean, straight, I wouldn't be shocked to see them at 1 through 15.
Yeah, me neither. I set the limits here. I would be shocked if we were 14th or 15th. I would also be shocked if we were first or second. Right?
Yeah.
So anywhere 3rd to 13th, I'd be, okay, that makes sense. Right?
Yeah.
Because the Eastern Conference, that's one of the biggest things one of the biggest aspects of the East people have to look at is the talent, obviously, when evaluating where the Celtics are going to be, because there are a couple teams that are unproven that people are putting at the top of the East next year that people are projecting forward, right? The Pistons, the Hawks, the Magic primarily. But those are unproven teams. They were all down 6, 7, 8 last year. And what if they're more like those 6, 7, 8 teams again and not like the top of the East, right? Not playing with the top of the East the way it was slotted last year. And under those circumstances, the Celtics could make their way up the standings and be a little bit more frisky. And the roster, you made a good point there too. The roster is not set, and it's closer to being set now with this acquisition of Chris Boucher because there's some front court help, which everybody's been screaming out about all summer long. So there's that front court help with the Celtics. But every move, of course, as we get closer and closer to the season, it's putting us closer to this roster being finalized for one last time, at least before the season. The roster, however, now I would say what it looks like and what the salary sheets look like. Anthony Simons has to be on red alert when it comes to his trade market right now. And if the Celtics could 100% trade Anthony Simons within the next week or within the next couple days or within the next month before the season. Okay, I'm more on the train of the Celtics keeping Simons and keeping that asset long term, but the extension is going to be hard with Simons, right? He's due to hit unrestricted free agency in 2026. And if the Celtics don't feel as if they can keep him, well, maybe moving him for a more long-term asset, making less money, particularly $12 million less, right? If you can get a $15 million player under multiple seasons, that seems to be the more efficient path for the Celtics if they feel they can't re-ink Anthony Simons in the future. And I would say Anthony Simons, a deal surrounding his name is definitely it's like the earthquake, right? It's like the earthquake and the tsunami. You have an earthquake go off, and then you have the tsunami warnings all around the coast. I mean, we just saw this in Russia and Hawaii and California. An earthquake happens and you send off the tsunami warnings. I mean, the tsunami warnings, they're popping up on Anthony Simons's phone right now. That's what's happening. The earthquake was, Niang's out the door. And I want to bring this up too. Niang and Simons, there was a pretty good debate over the last couple of months about, oh, well, will the Celtics actually shed more talent to shed cap, right? Well, the Celtics cut talent to cut salary. And part of the conversation was, well, they did get Niang and Simon. Those are two pretty good assets. They still cut a large chunk of money. And do the Celtics even care about the repeater tax? Do they even care about paying a higher tax bill in the future? Well, turns out the Celtics care because the Celtics traded Niang for absolutely nothing. And this is followed by, or not followed, but rather this now follows up the Kristaps Porzingis deal and the Drew Holiday deal. If the Celtics were going to trade or already traded, right? The Celtics already traded these guys. If the Celtics already traded Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday to cut cash, why wouldn't they do it with Georges Niang and Anthony Simons? Okay, I almost feel delusional for thinking a couple weeks ago that maybe Niang and Simons could stick around. Niang, he's already out the door. He's been rerouted elsewhere for literally nothing. Can anybody comprehend this right now? And those 2 second round picks, the Celtics received second round picks in the Portland deal. They received second round picks in the Portland deal, in the deal on draft night with the 32nd overall pick, and that turned into Shulga and Amari Williams. And if I'm not mistaken, the Celtics, I believe they might have received second round picks in that Niang deal, that Porzingis deal as well. Well, the Celtics, regardless, they trade away Porzingis for Niang and then trade away Niang and 2 second round picks for RJ Lewis Jr., who is oddly enough Reggie Lewis Jr., ironically. I mean, RIP Reggie Lewis, but this in no relation to Reggie Lewis Jr. But Kristaps Porzingis turned into literally nobody, a two-way player. The Celtics traded Kristaps Porzingis for a two-way player. If the Celtics are willing to do that with Porzingis' contract, and if you really think about it, the Celtics turned Kristaps Porzingis' $30.7 million into $0, right? They alleviated his entire salary. Now they replaced some of that with Chris Boucher's 3.3 million. You could say Garza, Mina, whatever, right? They're free agent signings. But the Celtics, they shed away all of this salary with Kristaps Porzingis, they trade him for absolutely nothing. And then Holiday, we all know the bit there. They trade him for Simons. So basically, Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis for Anthony Simons and a bunch of cap alleviation. I don't think the Celtics are necessarily done. They're $12 million away from that luxury tax line. And we've already talked about this. The Celtics, if they don't get under the repeater tax this season, well, regardless, the Celtics, if they do get under the repeater tax this season, they'll have to get under it again next season. But then the Celtics, at that point, Tatum comes back in the lineup. We've talked about all this in the past, but the Celtics at this moment in time, with the repeater tax and their luxury tax payment, if they don't get under it this year, that repeater tax will kick in. And all of a sudden, they're $12 million away from getting under that luxury tax line and now putting one mark down under year one of not paying the repeat, or rather, not paying the luxury tax, which is 1 year towards them not paying towards the repeater tax. The fact the Celtics are $12 million away, why couldn't there be a deal out there? Simons for this specifically this. The Celtics need to cut $12 million away from their salary books to get to that number, right? That 187.9, I believe. I believe that's the luxury tax line, if I'm not mistaken. So the Celtics need to cut $12 million away to get to the $187.9 million luxury tax line. Why couldn't the Celtics trade away Anthony Simons' $27 million contract for, and it's an expiring too, it's an expiring contract for a $15 million deal out there, somewhere out there on the market? Maybe it's Terrence Mann. Maybe the Celtics somehow get Terrence Mann in the end anyway. It could happen. That's a multi-year deal that the Celtics can control beyond next year's trade deadline, because that's a big thing with Simons too. The Celtics only control him now. If we're looking at transactional windows, the Celtics control Simons now, this transactional window this summer, and at the trade deadline. After that, Simons is going to be a free agent and he could sign anywhere out there in the league. And we're already seeing the Celtics are having trouble re-signing Al Horford, or we don't even know what's going on with him. How are they? I mean, Simons is going to be a much larger deal than Al Horford's deal. And so the Celtics, looking at it from that perspective, I think there could be another deal on the horizon where the Celtics are getting rid of Anthony Simons' expiring deal, that $27 million, for, say, a $15 million deal or a $10 to $15 million deal. That's a multi-year deal that the Celtics can control, not only at next year's trade deadline, next season's trade deadline in 2026, but rather the summer of 2026 as well, and even beyond that, maybe into, of course, the 2027 trade deadline. So that's where the Celtics are in terms of potentially flipping assets. If not, the Celtics are just going to pay the luxury tax again, which the Celtics, I say, they'll have half of a season to dip under that line. So they still have until the deadline to get under that line. But otherwise, if the Celtics don't make a move to cut $12 million away, they're just going to pay the tax, and that's going to trigger the repeater tax. And we've seen with these moves so far, the Celtics seem to be desperate to shed salary. So I wouldn't doubt that moves are still on the way.
Well, so here's my thing with that, right? Because I think in theory you present a good point, but I think the one thing you're forgetting about here is you're entering Anthony Simons in the same conversation as Georges Niang in terms of a talent, what a player brings from.
No, you're correct about that. You're correct about that.
And I think when you even date back before the trades even happened, coming to this postseason, we fully expected for Porzingis to be a net negative loss. We were expecting to give up a first-round pick attached alongside of him, to shed salary, and we were not expecting anything other than a salary dump for KP. What does Brad do? He does exactly that. He just does it in two steps. He makes the move for Niang, and then after Niang, he sheds the salary. After acquiring Niang, he sheds Niang's salary. Holiday clearly had a market between the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Clippers. We saw Portland move in. I think Holiday was a two-step process to attain talent through Holiday and through cap flexibility through Porzingis. I think that was Brad's roadmap. I don't disagree with you, though, that Simons could be dealt. I think it would be really stupid to do it before the deadline if you're going to deal him, though, because I do think, again, there is an opportunity where you're a little competitive right? And maybe Simons is producing, and maybe his value is really at the lowest it could be right now. Maybe you can showcase him a little bit, and he can be that piece that brings in a bigger player. Because I do think like there is a world, right, where you have Simons who's making 26, you have Hauser who's making 10. That's $36 million that you can move now. You're over that second apron. You can do 2-for-1s. You can do.
All right. Rob has. Well,
No.
we got him back. We got him back.
He's back.
So you gotta be patient sometimes. It's like, all right, he's back.
Circles. I was like, no. But I think there's something out there with Simons. I don't think you should move him yet. I also do believe that at the deadline, you're going to have a way better idea of whether or not you're going to see Tatum next season. And I think if the answer is no, you're not going to see Tatum, you see Boston dump Simons. But if there's a world where it's like Tatum's ready to go and he is ahead of schedule and he looks good and it's safe to put him out there, then why not move Simons for a piece like Sabonis or like a piece that's on the market, right? I think you wait to the deadline. Your options are truly limited or unlimited. If you do it now, I think it's a little limited. It's like, okay, is this premature? Right. You know, if you move Simons just to shed salary, it's like, why not shed salary through Hauser and Tillman? Right. That's $12 million right there. So I do think if they're going to shed salary, the talent dispersity on this team is so limited right now that Simons is probably like the third guy in terms of a talent pool that Boston's got. You can't salary dump your third guy when he's 26 and not injury prone. You can do it when it's KP. I don't think you can do it with Simons right now. I'd be surprised if they did it. I think they do it at the deadline, though.
Well, you brought up another name in there, too, that could be on high alert, which is Sam Hauser.
Please.
$10 million. And you brought up the two players, Hauser and Tillman, right there. They make up $12 million. And that's where I see the magic number being for the Celtics right now, because right now, the summer, that's every single move this summer. I mean, it has to be driving fans insane. I love this summer because, so I absolutely love this summer. All right, let's see. Do we have hello. We have somebody special joining the program here tonight as we welcome on in Griffin Aldrich joins the program here tonight, folks. Welcome on in, Griffin.
Give him a WWE.
You already did your CNR vids over on Celtics Nation Rise. So everybody go check those out after this live, of course, after the live.
Wait till the end and subscribe right now. Like, don't be a sponge. Go subscribe.
No, another tab, right? Another tab. Open another tab. Go over there.
No.
But
subscribe to Celtics Talk Weekly. I'm saying, go subscribe.
Our other tab is open right now.
You got
but you're exactly other tabs. But Griffin, your initial reaction on these two subsequent moves here, these two simultaneous moves. First, the Niang trade, which looked awful when it happened, but then afterwards, the subsequent move of Chris Boucher and the Celtics signing the longtime Raptors forward. What are your initial thoughts on those two moves, Griffin?
Well, Seamus, you said it right there. I mean, it was shocking because it all came at once. Like, you know, you had the Niang trade and you're like, oh, bang. All right. We got to react. And then it's like, bang. All right. Celtics sign Chris Boucher. But at the end of the day, we talked about this, right? With the whole JD Davison thing. We were awaiting a move for the Boston Celtics. And Seamus, I have to say, I think this is the first time we weren't recording and we're actually, I don't know what you were doing, but.
No, we'll ask Carson over here. We were coming back from, we were coming back from
the river trip and we got hit with the news. It was just, and yesterday, because backstory here, Franco tried to call me yesterday. I had no cell service and I texted him, I'm going to be on the river all day. Naturally, this will be the day where Al Horford signs somewhere, right? Like this is what's going to happen. But no, the Celtics, I mean, they saw our bookings or something. I don't know what it was. They knew to wait. They
let us enjoy our day yesterday. And then today, the minute, I swear, I was home for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I couldn't even get 15 minutes. 10 minutes. The notification, Georges Niang, he's traded to the Jazz. And then after that, Griffin, you texted in the chat, oh, and we got our center. I'm going, what is he talking?
Power
What is
forward.
he talking about right now?
It
What is
could
he
be-
talking about? And then saw the Boucher notification. So that's what was happening with myself. I mean that I'm a little shocked we weren't on live, quite honestly. I'm a little shocked. I mean, we were on a roll, and this breaks our streak. All streaks are meant to be broken, so I guess that ends it for us. But every transaction this summer we have a live reaction for, even down to the Minot signing. I mean, the Minot signing, that was the bad one because we didn't know how to pronounce his name. All right, we were like, Josh Minot, Minot. You said Josh Minute. I remember you said Josh Minute.
Names.
We're like, okay, I guess.
I was definitely butchering his last name. Sorry, Josh. We love you. We love you. But ultimately, coming down to it, though, it was questionable at first. And obviously, you look at it from the long term. You look at it, they shedded some salary. And that's ultimately what the Celtics wanted to do. That's honestly what they came into the offseason doing. And I said this earlier with Celtics Nation Rise. As Seamus looks in disgust, what's going on, Seamus?
I'm not looking in disgust. I can't see the screen. I'm trying to.
Oh, you're good.
Okay,
you're good.
if you guys really want to know, I'm preparing
like,
right now. I'm like, okay, if Franco comes in here, there's going to be a 5-man, so I got to put in the 5-man background in case a 5-man comes in, so it doesn't. So we got to transition smooth. See, but I can't see the screen, so I'm going.
That's fair.
Backstory production. That's what's happening around here.
That is. No, but ultimately, though, you knew what was going to happen going into this offseason. I mean, when Tatum went down with the Achilles tear, you kind of looked at it and you're like, all right, can the Celtics be championship contenders next year? Most likely not. So the next thing was to get under the second apron and build for when Jason Tatum comes back, and then potentially spend then. It's definitely up in the air, but I will have to admit, like, I feel like Celtics Nation was so against, obviously, Georges Niang. So 95% of them are like, yes, get him the hell out of here. But I'm one of those 5 that I was like, all right, I warmed up to Niang. I liked what he said on the podcast, how he's like, you guys took the unicorn and you got a minivan. Like he was.
Does he still appear on that podcast if he's just salary dumped? Like they're like, oh, let's get newest Boston Celtic Georges Niang on the pod. Like, yeah, we'll get a ton of views with this. But if he's just dumped to the Jazz, do they just go, sorry, George, we're gonna have Duncan Robinson on today. Sorry.
No, but
we're gonna have somebody on who actually has a spot in a rotation. Click.
No, but you look at it though, and it's like I was excited to see that energy. Like I would much prefer off the bench, like I said. Like that's a guy I would love to see come off the Celtics bench, especially when Tatum comes back. I feel like that would be a guy that could give you energy. However, now you dumped him and you get, now you have Chris Boucher, who's gonna fill his spot as the power forward. But, he's a tall, lengthy guy. I don't mind this move from the Celtics because you obviously sign Boucher for $3.3 million. So you're kind of fluctuating with that $5 million. So at the end of the day, it's salary. That's really what it is. It's salary dumping. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. I mean, I don't think the Celtics wouldn't have minded keeping Georges Niang. I mean, you traded Porzingis for him. They must have had some trust in him. However, they dumped that and they're like, all right, let's just go cheaper. So at the end of the day, a lot of people are not going to be happy about this offseason because it's just a lot of salary dumping. But at the same time, you could build up some players when the Celtics come back in 2027 and can potentially be competitive once again, which we're going to be competitive. I don't doubt that we're going to be competitive. However, it's not going to be the big hurrah that everyone has been expecting the last 2 years. So you go into this season, you're like, all right, we're going to build. And then next year, that's when you really compete, So ultimately, it's a bridge year. I think I'm going to stand by it's a bridge year, but I don't know. It was it was shocking. I mean, we did expect big things. I think we expected big things sooner. However, it came all at once because you had the Niang train and then boom, you get Boucher. Like it's like, all right, I works for us. In the dog days of August, as we like to call it, Seamus, we're getting some action here. So love to see it. At least we have something to talk about. It works.
I mean, my lord. I mean, at the end of July, after Summer League, it was becoming a little bone dry there for a minute. I mean, the two biggest news stories, it was JD Davison and Drew Peterson right now. It was big moves, right? But I do want to mention something on the tangent of the whole will Simons be dealt elsewhere now, right? Or even somebody else on the Celtics roster. The Celtics, when they traded when they traded away Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday for Niang and Simons, even though those moves were shedding major salary for the Celtics were getting some level of talent in return for those two players. They received Simons for Holiday and Niang for Porzingis, as we all know, and there was some level of replacement to those names in the lineup, even though we all knew, all right, that's definitely, those are lesser players, right? The Celtics turned something into something less, right? Where the Celtics shedding Simons and Niang for nothing is not quite the same as shedding Holiday and Porzingis for something less, right? Something turning into something less is different than something less turning into nothing, right? So that's also part of the argument when we're talking about will the Celtics keep Simons or deal him away. If the Celtics keep Simons, at the end of the day, the Celtics obtained Simons at the very least for Porzingis and Holiday, which is essentially what those two players have turned into, is Anthony Simons. But Simons, looking at the level of player he is, if I'm talking about the Celtics on a pure basketball plane, right? If you take the landscape and make it all about basketball and the conversation is all about basketball, I want Simons on the Boston Celtics, right? But Franco, he's been on this point. He's been very adamant about it. He's kind of flip-flopped. I'll let him explain himself on here, but he's flip-flopped, right? But part of his point has been, well, if the Celtics can round out, what's funny about this point is actually it happened with Niang rather than Simons, but his point was if the Celtics, if they go ahead and trade Simons or Niang, they could cut salary, as we just saw with Niang, but they could also round out the roster and reduce the redundancy and balance out the roster a little bit better. We just saw that with the Niang trade, right? Niang's dealt for nothing, and the Celtics make a subsequent move in signing Chris Boucher. And I again want to view that trade as, or rather those transactions as Niang for Boucher. That's essentially what happened. Niang for Boucher. The Celtics did that with that trade. Simons, the potential is still there for another trade like that to happen because there are people out there that believe Simons, Pritchard, a little redundant in the guard rotation together, and Simons, $27 million. Maybe he's not worth that full $27 million. Plus, like I said earlier, you could trade Simons away for, say, a $15 million player, cut that $12 million off, and even if that $15 million player is extended beyond next season, the Celtics can control that player beyond next year's trade deadline. So the Celtics, there are definitely paths the Celtics could take, but Simons, I would agree with you, Rob, how he's in a different kind of sphere of talent, right? He's something for the Celtics. He is something. There is an argument on could you balance the redundancy a little better in the Celtics roster and receive a player that's maybe in the $15 million range. There's that on the table, but there's this other side of the conversation that's what if we just keep Simons because he's a really good ball player and he's only 26 and could be even better in the future. And like I've mentioned in the past, trading away Simons now could be like trading away guys like John Wall, Kemba Walker, Isaiah Thomas, CJ McCollum back in 2016. Those guys were all 25, 26 years old. They hadn't quite hit their peak yet. And we all know from 2015, 16 to 16, 17, and then into 17, 18, all those guys got better. 25, 26 years old. All those guys were hovering around 20 points per game. All of those guards wound up being at least around 25 points per game during the peaks of their careers. So that's where Simons is right now. I mean, he could legitimately increase his play and improve his play that much under the Celtics, where again, with your point, Rob, the Celtics could potentially showcase him a little bit next season, and not only for other teams, but themselves, right? I mean, Anthony Simons could show out to the point where the Celtics go, we cannot get rid of this guy. I mean, this would be idiotic to get rid of this guy, or at least if we're getting rid of him, we want to extend him first and then talk real players and not just, a salary shedding guy. Give us Terrence Mann for Simons. I mean, these deals this summer, I got to say, if people aren't tapped into the financial implications of all of these deals, they have to be utterly confused, because the Celtics, at the end of the day, every single one of these moves this summer has been about the Celtics shedding salary. And the secondary, this Brad Stevens, he said his press, we value assets over shedding salary. We value assets. Well, most of the assets moved this summer were moved primarily because of salary and secondarily because of talent. And that is what the unfortunate part is about the Celtics and their situation right now. However, looking further into the Celtics salary situation, this comes from Bobby Marks, and there will be some conflicting numbers here, folks, because people have different numbers, people have different books. Things are in the summer not quite official. There's a lot of projections, but this comes from Bobby Marks. Utah is acquiring Georges Niang with part of the $26.6 million due to the Jazz on the John Collins trade exception. Niang is on an expiring $8.2 million contract. We knew that, but this is really the point of information that I wanted to get across here. The Celtics tax bill drops from $73.1 million to $30.4 million. And this is where the conflicting information will come into play. They are now $10.2 million below the second apron and $1.7 million over the first apron. So that comes from Bobby Marks. Now, here's where the conflicting information comes in, because we have Keith Smith here, and you'll see at the bottom of this is where the conflicting information comes in. So at the bottom, Keith Smith says within this tweet, Boston has one open roster spot and is about $7.8 million under the second apron. So Bobby Marks has a different number there, and I even have a different number than both of these guys, if I'm being completely realistic. Now, take it for a grain of salt, all projections, but I have the Celtics around $201 million for the total salary cap total salary cap allocations, rather, and that's about 200.9 million, but if you really want to round up, it's 201. That's the number I have currently with all of the math that I have, all the information in front of me. That's the number I have, right? Basically 201 million flat, nearly flat. But these guys have a little bit different information, and the number I have, the Celtics are about $7 million under the second apron. The Celtics are about $5 million over the first apron, and about $13 million over that luxury tax line. We've been saying 12 for most of this time, but they're about 13 million. And that's going off of my number. My number could be wrong, all of our projections. Keith Smith's number was more in the 200 range, but 200, the rule is going to be around, I shouldn't say the rule, but the number is going to be around 200 to 201. That's going to be around the number, because we don't even know. Chris Boucher, his contract was reported at $3.3 million, but Spotrac, so Shams, to get this straight, Shams reported $3.3 million for Boucher's contract. Spotrac has it around $2.9 million as the projection, so there are differing numbers here. But the whole point is we have a couple differing numbers, but the Celtics are around $7 million below the second apron, around $5 million above the first apron, and around $13 million above the luxury tax line. So that's where the Celtics sit right now, and only one roster spot available for the Celtics out there. 0 two-way spots. The last two-way spot was filled by Reggie Lewis Jr. Again, no relation to the late, great Reggie Lewis of the past, RIP Reggie, Celtic great, number 35. But this is how this tweet from Keith Smith reads right here. We might as well get on to that. RJ Lewis is signed to a 2-year, two-way contract. He'll fill the Celtics open two-way spot. Boston's other two current two-way players are Miles Norris and rookie Max Shulga. Chris Boucher will be on a vet minimum deal and will fill the spot open by trading away Georges Niang to Utah. Boston has one roster spot and is about $7.8 million under the second apron. So Keith Smith reiterating a lot of what I just said right there. So a good tweet to show. And also a good little tidbit of information. We do have more salary information out there for everybody, but more good information on this. Keith Smith, the Celtics created an $8.2 million traded player exception by trading Georges Niang to Utah. They'll have 1 year to use that TP. And folks, you have exactly 1 year. So August 5th, 2026, that TP will expire. The Celtics also created, let's note this, the Celtics also created a $22.5 million TPE in the Porzingis Niang deal back in June. And the Celtics, they have about 11 months now to use that one, but a year at the time. So a little tidbit, a little note on that. People freak out over TPEs. Most of the time, TPEs go expired. Sometimes they're used just to get a transaction through, and they're good for that. But they're not a big asset that people should really freak out about. Although they do, because they see that big number. They see, oh, the Celtics have something there, but they really don't at the end of the day. But more information here from Keith Smith. This is about Amari Williams, because I'm sure a lot of people are questioning what exactly is going on with Amari Williams. We have RJ Lewis Jr. under a two-way contract, and we have Max Shulga under a two-way contract, and Miles Norris. All the two-way contracts, all those spots are filled. Meanwhile, a standard deal is still on the table for the Celtics. We'll let Keith Smith explain it right here. Since there seems to be confusion on Amari Williams and the Celtics, number one, Boston controls his draft rights. He cannot sign with another team. So Amari Williams can simply not walk to another team right now. The Celtics do own Amari Williams' draft rights. And number two, the Celtics could sign him to a standard roster spot or a two-way spot. Right now, there aren't any two-way spots open for the Celtics. However, mostly there's no rush to do anything right now for the Celtics because the Celtics are mostly shuffling their roster around. And Keith Smith says at the end of the tweet, the Celtics roster shuffling probably isn't done, right? That's where the Celtics are at this current moment in time. And also want to bring up something from Ian. Ian with a little tidbit of information here. UMass Minutemen to play for the Boston Celtics. AJ Winder in 1990-91, and then now RJ Lewis Jr. in 25-26. And after the Chris Boucher signing, had to bring this one up too. And Griffin, I'm sure you'll be using this one on the Celtics Nation Rise podcast this week. Chris Boucher and Peyton Pritchard at Oregon. Both Ducks. All right, both Ducks at Oregon. Chris Boucher and Peyton Pritchard played on the same team back in Eugene. Now they'll be all the way down. Look, they're West Coast guys. They're all the way. They played all the way on the West Coast. Now they'll be playing on the East Coast with the Celtics. And also have this little bit here from Justin Turpin on RJ Lewis. RJ Lewis appeared in 35 games, 32 starts for St. John's last season. And mind you, too, Rick Pitino, former Celtics coach, Rick Pitino, his St. John's team last year, 31.8 minutes played per game, 18.2 points per game, 43.9% from the field, 33.6% from beyond the perimeter for RJ Lewis at St. John's. Also came up with 7.2 rebounds per game. That's a pretty impressive mark for the guard he is. He's a primary ball handler on St. John's. He's one of their top rebounders as well, and also 1.4 steals for RJ Lewis. Was a consensus All-American, St. John's first since Ron Artest, also known as Meta World Peace, back in 1999. Justin Turpin also goes on. A few more notes. Consensus second team All-American, won the Big East Player of the Year last season, was one of two players to rank top 5 in the Big East in scoring and rebounding, led the conference with 10 double-doubles, recorded 33 double-digit scoring efforts and 14 20-plus point outings, made 229 field goals, the most by a St. John's player in a single season since Marcus Hatton in 2002, 2003, who had 277. So there's a little bit of information on RJ Lewis Jr. and wanted to give him a little bit of shine because the Celtics did acquire him, and he is technically, as Griffin exits the Griffin and Rob, thank you tonight for contributing to the program as they exit the screen there. But wanted to give RJ Lewis some shine there because he's ultimately not going to be a player who I'm just not convinced he's going to be on the Celtics in due time because RJ Lewis, I said this earlier, the Celtics, the whole point of the Niang deal was to shed salary. I mean, I think everybody understands that when you're trading Niang for a two-way player and the Celtics turn Kristaps Porzingis into a two-way player. But what we saw is the Celtics trade Niang is $8.2 million for a two-way player who is non-guaranteed. What happened in that deal was the Celtics, they're trading for a player who they can just waive later on in time. With Amari Williams not on on any, there's no ink to paper with Amari Williams yet. All right, there's no ink to paper. There's no way the Celtics are going to walk into the season with RJ Lewis Jr. and Max Shulga and Miles Norris and without Amari Williams. That's not happening. Either he's inking himself, or rather the Celtics are inking Amari Williams to a two-way spot, or not a two-way spot, rather a standard spot, or the Celtics are going to waive one of these two-way guys, whether it's Miles Norris or newly acquired RJ Lewis. They're going to replace one of those two players with Amari Williams. The roster shuffling, Keith Smith, he said there in the tweets, is not done. All right, it's not done yet because this roster at this current moment in time, still $12 million over 12, 13, right? In there, a little couple, it's somewhere in there. $12, $13 million over the luxury tax line. And not only that, Amari Williams, again, he's the biggest. I hate to say it at this point in the summer, folks, but Amari Williams is the biggest piece, the biggest domino. I shouldn't say yet he's not a domino that's affecting all the other dominoes, right? He's the domino that's waiting to be hit by all these other moves, right? And maybe the domino to fall is one of these two-way guys, one of those two-way guys. The Celtics waive one of those two-way guys. It's possible that happens. But where the Celtics are right now, you would have to think there are a couple more moves on the way. Could be fringe moves, which people are not going to like to see. Okay, they're going to be, yeah, we signed Amari, and we're still good right now. Audio-wise, we're still good.
We're good. We're good. Yeah.
All right, cool. So a little bit of an audio issue, but where the Celtics are with their salary sheets, they're $12 million away from the luxury tax line. They've been shedding salary all summer. It could definitely happen once again, and that's what's on the way is either a fringe move by the Celtics, right? A fringe move where they're cutting bait with a Walsh out there. They're cutting bait with the Walsh, or they're cutting bait with somebody like Walsh or Miles Norris, or even salary dumping Xavier Tillman out there. They're doing something around the fringes like that. I know we keep. Well,
I can't deal with Xavier Tillman.
Xavier Tillman, look, in the conversation of shedding salary, makes sense. In the rotation, maybe not so much. All right, maybe not so much in the rotation, but where, like right now, right? What's on the way? Because I say there's more moves on the way. This is what I want to be clear about. The moves on the way are either going to be, I mean, for one, you're going to see a move around the fringes. I'm guaranteeing that. Okay, that's going to happen. But the other move could be another move to shed salary, which this summer it just feels like Celtic Nation just taking beating after beating after beating after beating when it comes to all of the salary shedding moves. All right, because almost every single move this summer, down to the draft pick of the Celtics, at 28th overall, down to the Hugo Gonzalez draft pick. Every single move has been about shedding salary. Every single move. All right? And it could happen again. It could happen again. I've been briefing it with Anthony Simons, right? Could it happen with Anthony Simons? Blah, blah. It could happen with Anthony Simons. It could happen with Hauser. Hauser could be out the door for absolutely nothing. It could be out. It could be another player on the Celtics roster. Do I even dare say, no, it's not going to be a guy like Derek White. It's not going to be a guy like him.
Absolutely not. It's going to be Anthony Simons, and that's going to happen
Look,
soon.
Derek White, the only way you would shed salary with him is if you were trading him for a truly either better player, plus you'd either have to trade him for a better player or a comparable player plus picks that makes lesser money, that makes less money ultimately.
Trading Derek White, I don't want to ever think that the Celtics are tanking or even trying to tank, because it's not going to happen. They're still trying to stay competitive, but if they trade Derek White, it's just going to start in the back of my mind where I'm like,
are the Celtics
Brad Stevens
are the
trying
Celtics
to tank?
lying about wanting to be competitive next season? Okay, because I'll tell you right now,
they're ultimately trying.
Look, I'll go down here and I'll read it verbatim. Okay, these are the notes that I took during Brad Stevens' presser. Okay, these are the notes. Okay, actually, let me go. Now I copied and pasted a couple of them from the actual presser, but I'm gonna go all the way back to July and pull them all up. All right, I'm gonna pull them all up. I had a couple on this live script, but I'm gonna pull them all up because I'm telling you, this press conference by Brad Stevens, okay, I am appalled by how do I say untruthful? Do I say untruthful? How untruthful Brad Stevens was in this press conference, right? Because I think I respect Brad. Okay, don't get me wrong. I respect Brad. I completely do. And I understand he's just doing his job. I'm not actually trashing on Brad here. But when he goes to the presser and says what he says back at the beginning of July, after the draft, after the Drew and KP moves were made, right? Going back and looking at that press conference, okay? Brad was asked, how driven are you by possibly getting out of the luxury tax, and how much does that weigh on the decisions made? And Brad Stevens said, oh, well, there's value in those things. And he said, well, to be fair, the guys at the top, they're the ones who make that decision, right, on whether you're shedding salary or not, whether you're getting under the luxury tax or not. And I'll note this too. The Celtics are now under new ownership compared to previous seasons, and rather compared to the previous almost 30 seasons with Wick Grousbeck. Now the Celtics are under the ownership of Bill Chisholm, and yes, Wick Grousbeck, he owns the governor's role right now, and he's supposed to be making the decisions. But we all know Bill Chisholm. There's going to be some major say from Bill Chisholm, who just bought a $6.1 billion basketball team. There's going to be some say from a guy who pays $6.1 billion for a new sports car, right? And that sports car is the Boston Celtics. I mean, he's going to want to drive that thing around. That's the whole point. But Brad did say, well, to be fair, that's the decision. Those are the decisions made from the guys at the top. That's why I can't blame Brad for all of what's happening. But he also said it's been pretty clear from the get-go. Bill, as in Bill Chisholm, okay, didn't say Wick, said Bill. So there's that. Okay, Bill's driving the sports car. We understand. Oh, it's, Wick still has the keys, but very much Bill's driving it around. All right, Bill's driving around that sports car. Bill has been pretty clear from the get-go that he wants to make sure we're prioritizing basketball assets and the ability to retool this thing at the highest level that we can. What? Right there, okay? Right there. When Brad Stevens says that, okay? When Brad Stevens says that, and he was also further asked about, is resetting the repeater tax, is that a priority or not? Right? Is that a priority? Because how he answered that last question, oh, well, there's value in those things, but but we are prioritizing basketball assets, right? But then somebody comes back and goes, well, you're prioritizing basketball assets. That means you're not prioritizing the repeater tax and the luxury tax line, right? Is that what that means? And Brad goes, well, the priority is continuing to make sure that we have our future first and all the things later that are in play for us that we can use to build. That is what Brad essentially said when asked, "Oh, well, is the repeater tax, is that not important?" He goes, "Well, it's important for us to have," and he kind of, you go back and you go, "Wow, he was kind of dancing around." He goes, well, it's important to have our future first and all that." Did he really answer the question, Brad? Is it a priority or not? Now we look back at this, right? Oh, the Celtics are prioritizing basketball assets. That's not happening. That's not happening. They're prioritizing getting under the luxury tax line. All right. The Celtics are prioritizing shedding salary. And the luxury tax line, maybe I can't say that for certain yet because the Celtics are still $12 million over that luxury tax line. But as of right now, the Celtics, with every single move, like I said earlier, the Celtics have been shedding salary, shedding salary, shedding salary, shedding salary. Okay, so why now when the Celtics are $12 million away, $13 million away from the luxury tax line, would the Celtics just throw up their hands and go, "Yep, well, we're done. We're now prioritizing basketball assets. We're not prioritizing getting under the luxury tax line and the repeater tax." And nope, the Celtics are 100% prioritizing getting under that luxury tax line, or at least shedding salary. And I would say likely getting under that luxury tax line as well, considering how close the Celtics are now and how, I mean, one or two moves could put the Celtics under the luxury tax line. And that's very, very possible in this next month for the Celtics, as we're seeing. I mean, two moves just happened in front of our face. I mean, Niang's gone and Chris Boucher's in. Those are two moves. Bam, bam, right there. Two more moves could put the Celtics under that luxury tax line. But Brad Stevens says in his press conference back in early July, "Oh no, Bill, he wants us to prioritize basketball assets. He wants us to retool this thing at the highest level possible. And yes, there's value in those things. Oh, thinking about the repeater tax and luxury tax, but it doesn't maybe it's not the priority." And then Brad, of course, kind of dodges the question about is repeating is resetting the repeater tax a priority or not. And he kind of dodged it a little bit, right? He dodged that question. It seems as if that is the priority. And that's where this press conference, it was not very truthful from Brad Stevens. That being said, Brad was doing his job. He was filtering it through the corporate lens of, okay, we're hiding, we're putting a veil over what we're doing, we're putting that iron curtain over what we're doing. We're not allowing the public, because it's bad for business when you go out and say, if you're Brad Stevens, the GM of the Boston Celtics, it's bad for business if you go out and say, "Oh yeah, that's what we want to cut salary, we want to cut talent." What's that going to do for ticket sales next year, right? That's going to plummet ticket sales because you're openly advertising against your product, going, "Oh, we're actually making this thing worse. We're making this thing worse so that we can be better in the future." People don't like that. People want to buy things right now. They don't want to, "Oh yeah, we'll buy season tickets, or we'll buy a jersey, or we'll buy a singular game ticket in the future." That's not what people are thinking about. It's about next season, right? What are the Celtics doing next season? The plan is for the team to take a step back in 25-26 so that they can take a step forward in 26-27, or even beyond that in 27-28. That is the plan. But Brad Stevens in these press conferences, or whether it's Bill Chisholm, Bill Chisholm, he hasn't come out with a press conference this summer or anything like that. But if he were, any of these press conferences, they're always going to advertise themselves as, "Oh, competitive, competitive, competitive." But a person can politic and say one thing and then do another. Okay, we see this in politics all the time. We see this in the real world all the time. Okay, we see it everywhere. Somebody can say one thing and do another. It's what the Celtics do in these press conferences, specifically Brad Stevens and whoever's sitting there representing the Boston Celtics. And let's face it, it's every team. It's not just the Celtics. I'm not just poking at the. I'm diving into the Celtics because that's the team we're talking about. But I'm not just poking at the Celtics. It's all the teams across the league. They sit there at the press conferences. They give away propaganda. They say they're going to be competitive. They say they're going to be the best team in the world. And then they go behind the scenes and they trade away Georges Niang for a two-way player. or essentially, I mean, I guess Chris Boucher, you want to say, yes, okay, it was Niang, and then you brought in Boucher simultaneously for the Celtics. But even that move right there, why not just Boucher and Niang? Oh, you can't have both of them because they make up $11 million, the two of them. Celtics don't want that. They're going to shed that $8 million worth of salary for that $3 million in Boucher. And I just wanted to make that point clear of the press conferences, because the press conferences, we all gather around I like to think we're all gathered around a fire, right? We're like, oh, here's the Brad Stevens press conference. Like you throw it up, CLNS throws it up, and NBC Sports Boston throws it up. They have media access. One day Celtics Talk Weekly will be there throwing it up on YouTube, and everybody gathers around the fire, gathers around the radio like it's wartime, and we're like, what did Brad Stevens say? What did he say? And then everything he spits out is actually exactly like wartime. It's all propaganda. It's all
It's not
propaganda.
true.
And we
None of
go,
it.
oh, he said this and said that. And in reality, Brad used to be very, look, Brad had a lot of humility at his press conferences when he was the coach. He was very real. Nowadays, as the GM, I mean, I would hire Brad, I mean, to flip burgers for me. Okay. I'm telling you, he could be hired anywhere, McDonald's, Burger, anywhere. Okay. Because Brad Stevens just knows how to work. He knows how to do his job. If you give him a task, he's going to know how to do it. As a head coach, he was great at press conferences because there was a lot of humility to Brad, and he was a very real person. Okay, he was a very real person. As a GM, yes, there's still some of that realness to him, but there's a lot of, like I said, propaganda. There's a lot of, I'm closed off. I'm going to dodge this question here, there, right? I'm forgetting which press conference this was. It was either the after Tatum tore his Achilles or Brown tore his meniscus. I think it was the end of the season press conference, right? Griffin and I covered it on here, and we were talking about how Brad was dodging questions left and right and just not really saying too much and not really giving too much light to the situation. Good example is press conference last month. He was saying, he was asked about, well, have you guys talked with Joe Mazzulla about a contract extension? And he just goes, we really want Joe here for a long time. And it just moved on. Just moved on. Just he said one sentence and it moved on. I mean, that's the example of Brad Stevens as a GM now, a representative of the organization where, oh, and as we have Carson dip out here, as I'm sure had some technical difficulties. That actually might be my fault. Sometimes people let you know about the technical difficulties. Sometimes if you don't see the text, that's what happens, right? And my bad. But where was I at here with the Celtics? I don't even remember. Where I was at here with the Celtics. No, I don't know if I remember. Oh yeah, Brad Stevens and the press conferences, right? It's at the press conferences now. He's definitely more buttoned up, right? He's a little more buttoned up. He doesn't give away as much information as we have Carson joining us back here. We'll let him get situated. We'll, behind the scenes, we'll let him get it situated before we bring him back on camera here. But Brad Stevens as the GM, a little. Well, I'm just saying that great for somebody who's filling that role. He does a great job at it. Okay, he does a great job at it. And I understand people are going to look at this summer, and you never know. Brad Stevens' GM, his reputation as a GM might be a little, and more from the casual side, right? I don't worry about the NBA community looking at Brad Stevens going, oh, Brad Stevens, oh, he traded away Niang and Porzingis and Holiday, and basically traded away those three guys for Chris Boucher and Anthony Simons. And the Celtics have taken major talent losses on every deal this summer. Let's face it. Every deal has been about salary acquisition and salary shedding. Can we get a thumbs up here? Carson, thumbs up. Good to go. Okay. Let's add Carson back in here real quick as we get him back up on the screen. Taking a little while. But I was on the point here of welcome back into the program, Carson, by the way. Welcome back. But
So
I was on the point of Brad Stevens the reputation of him this summer. I think some people are going to look at it and go, "Oh, well, the Celtics they took massive talent hits this summer. Everything was because of salary. We understand that. I think the NBA community, everybody who pays attention consistently, will understand that. But other people bash his reputation. I don't think that should be the case whatsoever with Brad, even though I'm bashing on his press conferences just a little bit here. But I don't think Brad's reputation should be necessarily lessened from this summer. What are
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts
don't
on
want
that,
to. I
Russell?
don't want to. I don't want to put down his reputation because I mean you can't. You can't put down this man's reputation. What he's done for the Celtics organization is better than any GM has ever done for the Celtics. And what he's done even this summer, I'm not especially happy this summer. Like as you said, as we talked about, we don't agree. Like the press conference, he's saying one thing, and then all of a sudden we get a Shams thing. He's releasing something, and it's just the completely opposite. And we just don't. It's I don't want to call him untruthful, and I don't want to hate on him because it is his job, and obviously I'm not blaming it on Bill either. But I don't think this is gonna ruin Brad's reputation because what he's done for this organization is something that a lot of GMs can't do. And so, I mean, I don't want to call him untruthful, but I think personally, my opinion is that there will be more done this summer because of the track that we're on right now. There will be more done this summer, and I think that is including Anthony Simons. I don't. I know there's other people that could be traded. I know Sam Hauser's name was brought up. I know you even talked about Derek White. Derek White seems
Whoa,
like a
whoa, time out for the people who are on this program right now. I threw Derek White's name out there as like you'd have to get some really good players in return here. We weren't actively talking about shedding salary with Derek White here. Let's just set the record straight. You'll get me in trouble out here. You go, this man was talking about shedding salary with Derek White. I mean, that'd be like that's not quite as bad as Tatum and Brown, but that's getting up there.
that's a close second,
Close
close
third.
third,
Close
close
third.
third. Yeah, close third.
Brown is. I was a little the other day. I had a conversation about players who make way more than they should and how they just have the status and teams give them the money anyway. Guys like Trey Young and Zion Williamson, guys like that, right? Jaylen Brown might be in that conversation too. Just saying. Just saying where it's
I
it's
would
Jaylen Brown, got to give him that money. I don't know if he's worth it, but
I I partially agree with that because Jaylen Brown, amazing player. He's been an amazing player for however long he's been with the Celtics. He's just been a great player. And, I love him on the team. Definitely keep it. He shouldn't even be talked about in trade talks. I know you weren't talking. You didn't even mention his name. I know that. That makes sense. But
who? Peyton
I
Pritchard?
no, I'm saying Jaylen Brown. But
I was
what
gonna say
I
Peyton Pritchard can't be traded. No, not
no, of
literally. Not
course.
not 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 physically. Like, I'm not saying that as fact. I'm saying that as his contract way too valuable to ever consider. He's like he is almost a $20 million player making $7 million. That's too valuable, especially in this
Pritchard's
day and era
contract
where the Celtics are
is
taking away talent off their roster and shedding away salary. It's like
their whole summer has been a motive of shedding salary because going back to the KP one, we gave up Porzingis for essentially RJ Lewis, a two-way player. That's ridiculous. And I get the shedding salary motive. I get it. I get that's what the point is. I get that's what we're doing this summer. But for a two-way player, because Georges Niang, and then let's bring up Brad's reputation again because again, press conference, he was talking about how Georges Niang, he was just basically pumping him up, complimenting him. Niang is going to be a good fit on this
Oh,
Celtics
that
team.
I didn't wait. Did I even mention that? I don't
You
even know if
didn't
I.
even mention that. Well, you talked about it a little bit earlier. That's why I'm bringing it up now. But I'm saying,
No, the luxury tax stuff was a lot more important.
right,
Okay, but the Niang stuff was well. Can I let me loop back around on
right,
that real quick
exactly.
because I didn't even say what I needed to say when it came to Niang. Okay, because Niang that that was almost as egregious as the whole luxury tax statement, right? Okay, the luxury tax statement, that was really the primary the point was with that, right? Now, number one explains the untruthfulness of the press conferences, right, with the teams. But secondarily, the whole spending or the Celtics, are they okay with spending a little bit more? No, they're not. They're wanting to shed salary. But Niang, okay, Niang, at the press conference, when Brad is asked about Simons and Niang and those acquisitions, Brad goes on, and now I took notes on this. This isn't word for word what Brad said, okay, but this is along the lines of what Brad said. Niang has added value to winning in with each team he's been on. Okay, he's a pain to play against, which I very much admire, which is what Brad Stevens said, right? He knows what he does well and knows how to get the best out of his group, which I thought when he said that, I really thought knows how to get the best out of his group. Niang, he's a random role player. Is he this Marcus Smart lead? Is he supposed to be this Marcus Smart leader in the locker room? He's a random role. He's
He's
getting the
making him
best out
sound
of
like
his
a
group.
Derek White kind of
getting the
player.
best out of his group is something you say about a head coach or your team's best player or your team's fierce leader. Niang's a role player. I understand you can have those role player like leaders and veterans in your locker room, and Niang could have been one of those players for other teams he's been on, but getting the best out of his group, that seems a little maybe propaganda, right? He gets the best out of his group. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's played with the Sixers and Jazz and Cavs and Hawks. He's always with a different group. That's just I'm just saying that statement right there. But Brad also said it's not a coincidence he was a part. He was a part of the rotation on those really good Philly teams, and he was a part of the rotation in Cleveland last year before the trade. Guy is a winner, knows how to play, knows how to bring the best out of people, and Brad Stevens is glad he's here. Okay, Brad, well, glad he's here. Sit him away for a two-way player and essentially nothing, essentially Chris Boucher, because, we can't have Chris Boucher and Niang on the team at the same time. They cost $11 million. We'll take the $5 million of salary shedding. We'll take the $5 million of cap alleviation for Chris Boucher instead of Niang. Glad he's here. Also added with Brad, Utah. Georges Niang. I guess we don't have to get that right.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right. Georges. We were gonna mess that up all season long, and
Now we don't have
we're
to.
not. Now we're not gonna. Now we're not gonna do
Hey,
it. Okay, so that's
Chris
great.
Boucher.
Boucher. That one's
Not
easy. We've been on that
Boucher,
for a
not
while. We've been
Boucher,
on that for a while.
not Boucher, not Booker, Devin Booker. It's Boucher.
But Niang now going back to the Jazz. All right, great uniforms the Jazz have out there.
I
now
love
in
him.
Utah.
That's
Now you don't get
personally prefer
relegated. You used to, if you get sent out to Utah, if you were sent out to Utah the last 2-3 seasons, I want to say 3 seasons, right? You both played for the worst team in the league when it came to record, but also jerseys, right? You own the worst record and the worst jerseys. I mean, it was a double whammy. It was like, oh, you got traded to Utah. Here's your bland summer league
it.
neon yellow jersey.
Oh
Now
God,
at
those
least
are
Utah,
terrible.
right? They got one of the coolest. They went, they paid their time. They did their time. They had the worst jersey in the league for 3 years. This is a Justin Lowe conversation, by the way. I'll say it's a Justin Lowe conversation. Worst jersey in the league for 3 years, and then now the best jersey in the league for who knows how long. I mean, an infinite number of years into the future. But
No, I wanna
Niang,
hope.
he's going to be wearing those Jazz jerseys again. Former member of the Jazz when the Jazz were good, so I'll add that into Brad's quotes there. Now with the Jazz again. But sorry, go ahead there, Carson.
I want to hope that the whole jersey rumors thing here, where now that the Jazz have good jerseys and they had those crappy summer league jerseys, I want to hope that 3 or 4 years from now, hopefully sooner, the Celtics get better jerseys, considering what we've gone through in the past year with them neon green jerseys, because holy, those were awful. And I hope that's how it goes. But that's going off on a different track. The point is, I don't want to say that Brad Stevens is I don't want to call it full out lies. I kind of want to say fibbing, but it's just these small white lies, because
No,
what's said
yeah,
in the
what the white lies very important in all this. It's
yeah,
not direct, and I again with Brad Stevens, he's not trying to lie to us, but he's doing his job. He's keeping the information hidden for ticket sales purposes. I mean, for
fans are definitely entertained by it, because I mean, that you don't know what's coming because he's saying this one thing in the press conferences, and then, like I said earlier, then you get that notification from Shams, and it's just not at all what you would expect. Did anyone expect RJ Lewis to be a Celtic today?
I
No.
think, okay, if we really go through the entire Celtics summer, it is just, if you are a casual fan of the Celtics, for me, I've loved this summer because it's given us a lot to talk about here on
Yeah.
Celtics Talk Weekly. We've gone live. I mean, a lot of content. All right, a lot of content this summer. I like, give me information, give me content. All right, I like to see news. I like this summer. All right, even though it's with the Celtics, it's mostly bad news. It's still news. Okay, other
It's
summers,
interesting news.
say 2024, what was the most interesting news that came out about the Celtics, other than obviously winning the championship in June, but off-season wise? Was it
I
Shireman, 30th overall,
It's probably
picking him 30th?
Shireman, honestly.
Shireman,
I'm
Svi
trying to think of
Mikhailuk
a
leaving. I mean, those were that was essentially in the summer of 2024. O'Shea Brissett not re-signing. I mean, those are not. Those were the like that. That was it, right? Last summer, that was it. The Celtics basically returned most of the championship roster from 23-24 into it. They basically transferred the roster into 24-25, and we were sitting there thinking, oh, they could be even better because second year continuity, and they only replaced Svi Mikhailuk, and who else did they replace on that roster?
I can't even think of it because I mean last summer, like yeah, I get
But
everyone was excited for that 2024 win, but it's after that it's just like we were in a desert. It was just
exactly,
there
but
was
yeah,
not
there
a
was no
single thing
news, there
happening.
was
There was
nothing, there was
nothing,
no
and
content.
there
It
was
was
nothing to think
championship
about.
celebration content. It was all the great content. This summer there's been more news, but the news, if you're a casual fan who doesn't just like news, right? Casual fans don't just like news, they like good news. Okay? They
Right.
they like good news. The news this summer has not been good for the Celtics. I mean, first off, it starts with Drew Holiday for Anthony Simons. Now, that straight up is not terrible, right? We were actually, some people were looking at that going, oh, that's actually, you turned a 35-year-old into a 26-year-old. That's pretty good. The Celtics are cooking here. Brad's cooking. Oh, Brad's cooking in the kitchen, which is just every transaction you'll see that once on Twitter. Ooh, Brad's cooking. I mean, he could sign everybody. They were fans of Moses Brown back in 2021. Ooh, Brad's cooking. We traded Kimber Walker for Al Horford and got Moses Brown. He's cooking. How did he get Moses Brown? Never appeared for the Celtics, but that's what happens. But the first trade was definitely, oh, Brad's kind of cooking, right? He's got the stove warmed up. He's kind of, shaking
I mean,
around
yeah,
the.
he was impressive at the start of the summer because, like you said, you're turning.
But
How old is Drew Holiday's in his 30s, and you turn him into 26, into a
no, like,
26-year-old Anthony
but
Simons, who's coming off one of the best seasons of his young career, and we don't know what's ahead of him. But the thing is, though, like, Seamus, I think we should be excited because, like we were talking about, there was nothing last summer. It's now August 5th, and we're still talking about a potential Anthony Simons trade. Anthony Simons is a big name on the Celtics right now, and he hasn't even played a game. He's a big name because we think he could still get traded. And it's August, and we're talking about this. So while might not be like Brad's cooking, it's not like the best summer for the team. It's an interesting one. There's a lot of content to talk about. These are interesting trades. These are interesting signings that I think could. There's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of bad things about this for the Celtics next year, but I think ultimately they can still be competitive. And honestly, like Griffin said earlier, a really good point was it's gonna be a bridge season. And
oh, he loves that point. I'll tell you right now, Griffin,
I
Griffin,
don't
Griffin
I
default mode. Be
somewhat
like, what kind of season is this for a Celtic? What kind of season is this going to be for the Celtics? I mean, he'll start laying the rebar wire. I mean, he'll just start he'll cross it. I mean, he'll throw it across the river. He's like, this is a bridge year right now. I mean, he'll show you right there. But I do want to say this though. The first move was as if it's like, ooh, Brad's cooking. He's flipping the eggs, right? He's flipping the eggs. And then the second move, right, which came less than 24 hours later, because people will forget about this history because they happen so quickly and everything meshes together in time. But Simons and Holiday, that deal went down. The Simons for Holiday deal went down at what, 10, 11 at night, I want to say. And then the next day, the KP deal goes down. I want to say 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, somewhere around there. Depends, which coast
I
you're
know,
on.
the
But
Simons deal was at night because I remember getting home and I was just like watching all these YouTube videos on is this the right deal for the Celtics? And to this day, I still question that because
for less than 24 hours, we were sitting there going, "Ooh, Brad's cooking and he's flipping these eggs." And then the minute that notification came through from Shams that KP was dealt to Atlanta for Niang, it was like those eggs, like just
I was at
like
a,
those eggs,
I was
like
at the
those eggs are those eggs are all over, like the woman's car
he was
floorboard,
he's
that's
flipping
like I'm sorry, like that's the eggs
he
were
was flipping
everywhere. It
the
was all over
eggs,
the wall,
flipping
all
the
over the
eggs
floor. That's how
everywhere.
those eggs got in the car. All right. That's how you were wondering how those eggs got in that woman's car. That's how it happened. Okay. That's how it
No,
happened.
I tell you, I was appalled because whenever the KP trade went down, because where I was at was Busch Stadium, St. Louis, and nosebleed seats. And I look on my phone to the one LTE cell service I have, and it's a Shams alert. And so I open it. KP traded for Georges Niang. First thing I did. Oh my Lord, what are we doing? And I went proceeded to watch the Cardinals game after getting that terrible news because we
And
traded
we
the
probably got more
unicorn
terrible news later
for a
once the
minivan.
Cardinals lost that game, right? I
Oh,
mean,
I'm sure they did.
sorry, folks. We're no. Everybody's like, "Ooh, the Red Sox are so fun right now," and we're just down here in the like we don't
Busch
even get
Stadium.
the South. It's like, ooh, the Southern Heat and the Bayou and everything. It's like, oh, St. Louis can't even get those labels, but we watch a terrible baseball team and sit in the
But we have
humidity all
Mason Win.
summer.
But we have Mason Win.
Mason Wynn, don't even get him started. He is not driving anybody to the
Uh,
ballpark. But I do want to I do want to reshift focus back on the Celtics summer because I could talk about the Cardinals all night. Let's face it.
yeah.
The next move after the Niang deal, right? And that Niang deal was something that set Celtic Nation off, and it's like, we made the Simons deal. Oh, the Niang deal. Oh, because every deal, most deals this summer, the Celtics, almost every deal. Okay, they've taken a major talent hit. Every deal. I mean, Holiday for Simons, not a huge talent hit, but defensively,
It's
yes, huge
there.
talent hit. KP for Niang, huge talent hit. Then Niang for, as we know, nobody. But then the draft, right? The draft comes about. Celtics 28th overall pick. Everybody's going, ooh, Ryan Cockbrunner. Ooh, who are we gonna give the 28th overall pick? It's gonna be our next big. Here we go. Oh, the still great name. Oh, Liam McNeely. Oh, Rasheer Fleming. Oh, they're all in the book. Hugo Gonzalez.
Hugo Gonzalez.
From where? From where? And his name's
Spain.
Ugo? His name's Ugo. Not Hugo, but Ugo Gonzalez. And he's from where? He's not. Who is this guy? And look, people convince themselves on Gonzalez because that's what every Celtic fan does. They go out and watch highlights and they convince themselves. They go, oh, maybe this player can actually do something for us. Gonzalez, what I want to bring up about Gonzalez is it was reported that the Celtics were looking for players at that 28th overall pick who would take the lowest rookie scale salary possible. Gonzalez coming from overseas, that seems to be the case because he's not taking any NIL money, right? Because the guys entering the draft, right? They don't own a guarantee, but there's some level of knowledge when it comes to the teams they're working out with and their agents and themselves. There's some level of knowledge of what salary range they could get into with a team, right? Oh, you're going to draft me 25th overall. Oh, I'm going to get this scale of a salary. Gonzalez, and it's in coordination with NIL, with that whatever NIL money they're going to get. Players know, oh, I can get this much NIL money going back to college versus this much on a rookie scale deal with the NBA or an NBA team rather. They balance out the risk and assess that risk. But coming from overseas, that NIL money isn't there. Okay, so Gonzalez, he doesn't have this other pool of money. Oh, NIL over here. He has either Real Madrid or the Celtics. So he's going to take a smaller deal coming from overseas because he doesn't have the NIL money, he just has the overseas money versus all of the guys coming in making NIL deals. They're going, okay, well, I'm coming to the first round. I'm going to make it. So you have that aspect with Gonzalez. where Gonzalez might have been a player the Celtics drafted in with the knowledge of this guy is going to take a lesser salary over time rather than, oh, this is a player we love and absolutely want at 28. Yeah, I'm sure there's there's some love for Gonzalez and his play in the Celtics. I mean, they're not just scouting these guys for no reason, and they're not going to make a draft pick for no reason. But Gonzalez, there was an aspect of his salary in that move, and people didn't really know who he was. Out of all the draft prospects down at that portion of the draft, he was not a sexy name. Okay, Gonzalez was not a sexy name at the end of the first round, as other names such as Ryan Kalkbrenner and Rasheer Fleming and Liam McNeely. And let's bring it up too. I brought it up on the live the other night. Liam McNeely, great in the summer league. The Celtics, one day, could it be looked at in this 2025 NBA draft? Could the Celtics and Hornets picks back to back, right? The Celtics 28, Hornets 29. The Celtics pick Hugo Gonzalez. The Hornets pick Liam McNeely. Could that be seen as a big mistake by the Celtics, right? A big mistake made by the Celtics where the Celtics pass up on Liam McNeely, who was falling down the draft boards, right? They pass up on him. They're the last team to pass up on him before the Hornets take him, before he has a great summer league. The Celtics go on and draft Hugo Gonzalez. That could add to the Celtics little bit here this summer where everybody's watching the Celtics make, I don't want to say bad move after bad move, but a move that creates talent deficit on the roster and so on and so forth. I mean, every single move there's been a hit to the talent on the roster. So that could be another aspect of what makes the Celtics summer worse for people in the future. That's not, evident now. That's something that'll play out later on in time, even multiple seasons. Let's face it, later on in time, 2-3 seasons, we'll really know about that. But for now, that could also add to the fact the Celtics have not had the greatest of summers when it comes to talent acquisition. But Cornette leaves, we all know, and then the start of free agency. Who are we gonna get in free agency? Any real names? Luka Garza, Josh
Chris
Minott. They could
Boucher.
be real names with the Celtics. They could make a name for themselves, and that's
Luka
what the
Garza
Celtics want.
Luka Garza is a young guy.
Luka Garza and Josh Minott could make names for themselves as Boston Celtics. Let's face it. But right now, if you ask a casual Laker fan, or that's not the best fan to ask,
Not a
a casual
Laker
Clipper fan, right? Like, if you asked a casual NBA fan out there, right, and you just went, what do you think about Luka Garza or Josh Minott? Chances are they've never heard of Josh Minott, and where their opinion stems from on Luka Garza would be his college games, but his actual play on court too at Iowa. So you have those two signings that happen back to back. You have Garza, Minott. People are going minimum deals. What are we doing? Not the people like players who don't own any experience whatsoever. And then after that, you have J.D. Davison. He's gone. So 3-year project and J.D. Davison.
Now on the Rockets,
all right,
too.
wave.
Signed with the Rockets the next day.
Immediately, too. So he's waved goodbye, gone. And then the Celtics trade Niang for Reggie Lewis Jr. and sign Chris Boucher, which the Boucher thing is a win. The Boucher signing, it's like rejoice, Celtics Nation.
I feel Boucher is the only. It's not the only.
Boucher and Simons are the crowning jewels this summer. Where we're like Boucher and Simons. Like, let's put them on. Like everybody else, everybody hated Niang. I felt like I was the one person who didn't hate Niang, which we got the.
I didn't hate Niang. I didn't hate Niang. I just didn't see him. I didn't see a certain place.
So sorry. So sorry that we have to get rid of the minivan here. I'm sorry to Celtic Nation, but Celtic Nation hated him from the get-go. Okay, they hated the minivan from the get-go, and what can I say about that? I mean, everybody had their own emotional opinions about that one. I didn't hate Niang. I thought he was going to contribute, but the salary is what it is, and I understand Boucher, Niang. But
I didn't hate Niang. I just didn't see a certain place for him on the team that were build. I wouldn't even say building. I'm confused. I'm not even confused what's going on this summer. They're just shedding salary, but I'm confused how this all puzzles together because we still have a potential Anthony Simons trade, and I just don't understand getting rid of Niang, bringing in Boucher. Like I love Boucher on the team. 3.3 mil. I think that's a steal for him to be on the team. Same age as Niang, 32 years old, averaging more points last season, less games, but giving Boucher a bigger chance might help. But I guess I'm just confused because I know the Celtics are trying to stay competitive, but this whole shedding contract, shedding salary, it's just confusing me a little bit.
Well, I think that's a pretty good assessment to have if you're anybody, because yes, it makes sense right now from a Celtics perspective to want to shed salary because of the luxury tax implications, and it goes back to what Bobby Marks said in that tweet about how the Celtics luxury tax bill, which let's see if we can actually pull that tweet up. We can pull
Is
that
he the
tweet
one
back
that
up real
he's the
quick.
one that said the 7.8 mil or the 10.2?
So let's see if I can bring him up here. I believe this is the tweet here. So the Celtics tax bill, the key line in here, the Celtics tax bill drops from $73.1 million to $30.4 million. So what that line says right there is the Celtics ownership just saved almost $43 million with this deal. Almost $43 million. Okay. And that is coming straight out of their pockets. Okay. So that is substantial when you're talking about real life money. And I'll remind everybody, billionaires do not become billionaires by throwing away money. Certainly not nearly $43 million worth of cash, because the Celtics, by just shedding away Niang's salary. Now, this tweet, I'm not sure if it takes into account Chris Boucher. I don't believe it does. So Chris Boucher would have to be factored into this as well. So these numbers technically would not be
It'd just be a
correct
little
here.
bit
So
off
this is
though, because
actually okay.
Boucher
I
is,
see what Bobby Marks doesn't have here. He doesn't have the Boucher deal. I was wondering.
which is
I'm
not.
saying what I'm not sure
That's why it's
what
not a
move
big
he's missing,
difference.
but Bobby Marks on this tweet does not have the Boucher deal. The luxury tax bill for the Celtics, it's these numbers are not these are not the current numbers, but it does give some insight as to why the Celtics would want to shed salary. That tax bill, when you go over the luxury tax line, say if you're the Celtics, every dollar the team spends over the luxury tax line, the team ownership is billed by the league per dollar and at a certain rate. And there's different brackets once you get further into the luxury tax. But the ownership of a team, in this case the Celtics, would be billed for every dollar they're over the tax. And there's a rate that goes on, and there's $1.50. It starts at $1.50, then it goes to $2.50 every dollar you're over. So every dollar you're over, you're paying $1.50 towards the bill, and then it gets to a certain point where you're paying $2.50 over the bill. But that's that money, right? That a team is taxed on that luxury tax bill, that is coming straight out of the owner's pockets. So team revenue, Microsoft revenue, whatever revenue, right? That's coming straight out of the owner's pocket. So wherever the owner finds that money, that's where the money's coming from. All this other money, right? So when we hear a report about Chris Boucher signing a 1-year $3.3 million deal, that $3.3 million is coming from the league revenue pot. That's meant for player salaries. Yet when a team is paying the luxury tax bill, that's not coming from league revenue. That's not coming from the league revenue pot. That is coming straight from the owner's pockets. And again, that could be player merchandise sales, that could be ticket sales, that could be team revenue, that could be again their own personal ventures, such as Steve Ballmer with Microsoft, right? It could be money coming from there ultimately, and how he assesses his own bank account. It's all up to the owners. That is right here. This key line though, that bill drops from 73.1 million to 30.4. Now those numbers are not correct right now. That is a substantial drop in, and that's the Celtics ownership right there in that one line, saving over $40 million of their own money. And that's why the Celtics would want to shed salary right now. That being said, first of all, I will say this. Fans will not like that at all. They don't like that because they want to see product, right? They want to see and specifically when talking about that, players on court. They want to see players who they can put up on the wall. They can put on a Wheaties box, right? They can put a player on a Wheaties box, and they can put a face on a pillar, right? You know, if you go to TD Garden, you'll see faces on pillars, right? Oh, here's the Tatum pillar and the Porzingis pillar, and well, not anymore, but you know, the Jaylen Brown pillar. You'll see all those pillars. It's the faces, the jerseys, right? Who actually brings fans out to games? It's the players. Like who's on court. Fans want to see the players. They want the jerseys. They want the posters, right? Somebody you can see a face of, and somebody you can root for. Well, the team,
Chris
right?
Boucher can be on those posters now.
Well, sure. He's going to be on a pillar next year. Don't get me wrong. He's going to be on a
I'll,
pillar.
I'll be getting
But-
me a Chris Boucher Celtics jersey.
But fans don't want to hear that, oh, a team is getting rid of those players in purpose of a billionaire saving money, right? Because the billionaire, everybody's like, oh, billionaire, oh, they have money already. That's what's happening. These billionaires are saving money that with these moves. They're not spending on the product everybody wants, and they're saving money. People don't want to hear about that. But here's the thing. That's why they save money right now. But what you said really hits home at another question, which is what does it look like for the Celtics in the future after this season? Because this season, we understand, okay, the Celtics are going to take us, it's going to be a bridge season like Griffin always
I
says,
was
right?
gonna say
A bridge season.
yeah.
Celtics going to take a step back to take a couple steps forward, and the Celtics are shedding salary, and it's not a tanking roster, but it's almost it's a mini rebuild. It's a retool. They call it. When you're not rebuilding, we're
retooling. We're not rebuilding because we still have Tatum. We still got Brown. We still got Derek White, who has become Derek White has become a core guy who he's not the face of the Celtics, but you think Celtics, you do think of Derek White. He's part of that.
Literally think about building a house. If you think about building a house, you have the foundation. That is like that Brown, Tatum, White, Pritchard.
Yeah.
Those guys are the foundation. So we're not the Celtics aren't rebuilding the foundation of the house. They're just retooling. You know, they're like, okay, can we knock down this wall over here? It's like, you know, great room. We use this as a party room up here, but it's like, okay, now we have kids. Got to knock the room down.
I almost wouldn't think of it as like a winter, almost like a hard winter. Like we're getting past this hard winter by adding all these Luka Garza, Chris Boucher. We're just kind of they're rentals. We're just
now
doing
the Celtics
this to
are
get
pilgrims.
past
This is what you're saying,
right? We're just getting
the Boston Pilgrims.
We're just getting
that's essentially where we're at.
It's catchy. I think, but I mean, like Chris Boucher, Luka Garza. I'm not saying they're all just going to get shipped off next season or in the next 2 years. I'm not saying that necessarily, but I think they are for this bridge season. I think they're important to the team just to be at least a little bit competitive in this because, like we said earlier, it's still possible to be a top 5 team because we're forgetting, like, yeah, we have no Tatum. We still have Brown, White, Pritchard. You could even throw Hauser in there. That's still a good team. I don't know if I'm not going to throw Hauser
that one,
but I'm not going to throw Hauser in there. It's a bit of a mistake, but you know, we still have some of our like core guys that are important to our team that can help us compete. All the other guys around us, I mean, they're part of the shedding salary. They know they're a part of that. I'm sure they've seen the news. They know they're a part of the shedding salary summer. But I mean, there's more to come. I'm excited for it. I think Anthony Simons is next.
I think you just phrased something that should be on a shirt, and that I think this summer is going to be like Celtic Nation will remember this summer as the salary shedding summer. All right, that
I like it.
Salary shedding summer of 2025 when the Celtics completely demolished their 2024 championship squad in preparation to build maybe in the future. The 2027 championship squad, right? The 2027 championship squad.
You know, we can say we won in 2024 and 27.
24, 27, 28 titles would be pretty satisfying. I like
that.
24 was a really satisfying number to win with. Okay.
2024 was a good number I just don't like we won in 2023. I like the 2024. When I think 2024, I think of the Celtics
So we got the Kobe.
Right. Kobe.
And look, we got the 08 and the 24. It's like, yeah, there you go, Lakers.
right.
Superstars numbers there. But I do want to say this too, when it comes to the Celtics in the future. You do make a valid point, or rather raise a valid question of what the Celtics, what are they going to look like in the future past this summer? Because this summer has clearly been, like you said, this salary shedding summer.
These are not long-term guys.
And I always look at asset overturn with teams, right? Where what did you turn assets into? Because we just saw the most egregious example this summer of asset overturn, and it was with the Phoenix Suns and Kevin Durant. The Phoenix Suns originally traded Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and a boatload of first-round picks. I want to say upwards of nearly 7. I want to say 7,
It was
maybe
something
5.
like that. It was
5 to 7 first-round picks for Kevin Durant. Couple were swaps, others were tangible first-round picks. And the Suns turned all of those first-round picks, essentially their entire arsenal of future first-round picks, Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, into Kevin Durant, who they traded for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Malawach, right, who they picked 10th overall. And there might have been another asset in that deal somewhere along the way. But they essentially traded Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and their entire arsenal of first-round picks for the 2020s for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and Kamen Malawach. That is terrible asset overturn. And I got to say, the Rockets, or rather the Suns picking up Malawach, still can't get it right after. On draft night, everybody, whoa, the Rockets got Malawach. Guys, he's traded to the Suns. Okay, never mind. That was literally the whole time on draft night.
Yeah.
Malawach to the Rockets. Oh, never mind, he's going to the Suns. But Malawach on the Suns does make that deal look a little better, especially if he's real good in time. But still, 10th overall, Malawach is one player, okay? One rookie for the Suns. The Suns gave up all of their first-round picks and Malawach is their own pick. Okay, so they didn't really get anything back with that pick. Okay, Malawach was their own pick. So I shouldn't even count Malawach for Kevin Durant because the Suns actually received their own pick back and didn't really trade. They traded away Malawach to get him back eventually. So that they didn't really gain Malawach. So it's basically Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and a bunch of firsts for Kevin Durant, who turned into Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. That is the most glaring example of asset overturn and how it can go. That is negative asset overturn, how it can go so negatively. The Celtics this summer, their asset overturn, say for Porzingis, follow the Porzingis crumb trail, okay? Porzingis, they trade for Niang, who everyone understands. Okay, yep, that's terrible.
That happens.
It's a move everyone understood salary wise, but talent wise, okay, yeah, you're getting way worse when you go from Porzingis to Niang. Okay,
because we didn't even go to younger.
Not great.
We didn't even go to that much of a we could have at least gone for a younger guy who has the chance to be star-studded. We just went.
But this is why they didn't. They traded away Niang for nothing.
A bag of chips.
Nothing. RJ Lewis Jr. And within that transaction, you follow the asset overturn. That means the Celtics essentially traded Kristaps Porzingis for nothing, for Reggie Lewis Jr. That's who they traded away Kristaps Porzingis for. And there were second-round picks thrown all over the place. I want to
Porzingis,
that.
2 second-round
picks all over the place.
Right.
But that asset overturn is not good. Okay, you're going from Porzingis to nothing. You're not even going from Porzingis to Niang. At least Niang could have made a case for, Niang, he's got a gritty role player in there. He makes some threes. You're not even getting that if you're the Celtics. You're getting RJ Lewis, who's probably going to be waived before the season. I'm just going to say it right now. Unfortunately, that's likely going to be the scenario with RJ Lewis.
Because we already have Miles Norris and the other.
Max Shulga, Amari Williams isn't under contract yet. There's no rush for any of these things, but RJ Lewis might not even make the roster. I understand people are going to say, yep, Chris Boucher, but Chris Boucher is also, you could say Garza, Boucher, and Minot. They're all under minimum deals. The Celtics would have been able to sign those guys even with all of the talent. Let's say if Kristaps was still around and Drew was still around and all.
They could have signed these guys still. They still could have signed them for that big man debt.
Over the salary cap. So the Celtics, even though they didn't have any salary space, they could have still signed these minimum players at the end of the day. Okay, so I want to make that clear. It's not as if the Celtics shed salary to put these guys into place. That's not really what happened. So I can't really sit here and say, Niang, like, you traded Porzingis for basically Chris Boucher because Niang, you get rid of Niang, you bring in Boucher. Yeah, those were the simultaneous transactions, and it's almost as if, yes, the Celtics got rid of Niang so they could bring in Boucher and not add to that salary because the Celtics weren't in the business of adding salary. But even that, I don't think the Celtics, it's not as if the Celtics necessarily traded Porzingis and the asset overturn was Boucher. The Celtics could have signed Boucher anyway with that minimum deal. So the asset overturn at the end of the day for Porzingis is nothing. And that is what I question going into the future is what does that actually look like for the Celtics? Because when you start overturning assets for nothing, it's like, okay, we had Porzingis. Porzingis contributed to the championship team. Now, who do the Celtics receive in the future from that asset? That's where the Celtics are going to have to. First of all, they're going to have to see great returns from guys like Tatum when he comes back, and then Brown is going to have to Brown and White. And when I say returns, right, a literal return from Tatum, and then Brown and White, they have to be playing well into the future, and then White into his 30s. But you're going to have to see great play out of the great players on the Celtics, the core foundation. But after that, the Celtics are going to have to be either really savvy with all their assets. They have to start trading up, right? Where you start seeing deals a couple of years ago, like the Celtics made, where they trade Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, and a bunch of end of the roster guys who were making minimum contracts, who the Celtics just signed off a whim because they needed to fill roster spots at the end of the 22 season after they made all the moves they did at the trade deadline. The Celtics that summer traded away Tice, Nesmith, and all those back of the rotation players for Malcolm Brogdon, right? That was trading up where you're going, I'm taking all these otherwise low rotation players and I'm turning it into the sixth man of the year. That's what the Celtics did back in 2023 with Malcolm Brogdon. And that's where the Celtics need to be, not right now this summer, but in the future, right? Where the Celtics are going to put in those championship pieces again, there needs to be a deal out there in the future, like the Derek White deal we saw in the past, where you can consolidate Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and
it was like a few seconds or something.
I want to say 2028 or a 2029 first round pick swap. That could be absolutely awful for the Celtics. The Celtics could have believe it is top one protected. So the Celtics to fall now, I would have to read up on that deal. But the Celtics trade away one future first-round pick, and it's a swap. So the Celtics didn't trade away a pick. They just traded away the rights to their pick, essentially. And Josh Richardson, along with Romeo Langford, for Derek White, who we all know Derek White went on to be a lot more valuable than any one of those assets, although we don't know what the pick's going to look like yet. Just saying, that's still pending up in the air. That's still the crown jewel of that trade, still to be determined later. But there's the Derek White deal. There's the Malcolm Brogdon deal. Then you go all the way to next summer. You have the Drew deal. You'd argue the Celtics gave up the most in the Drew deal because they're giving away Brogdon. They're giving away Robert Williams. And then you have the KP deal. The Celtics give up Smart. They were supposed to give up Brogdon in that deal. They end up giving up Smart, Gallo, and Mike Muscala. And the Celtics are just trading up in those instances, right? They're trading up, and making – I mean, those are big moves, right? They're big swings when you trade away guys like Robert Williams and Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. But that's where the Celtics – that's where they kind of have to set themselves up now in the future, is taking those big swings again and trading up, where you're trading away these lower end of the rotation guys, maybe like a Garza, maybe like a Minot, guys like that, and all of a sudden trading them for real rotation players. That and signing quality free agents in the future. That is not an easy task to do in the NBA anymore, but even having salary space is an asset, right? The Celtics don't have any salary space right now, but they're set up better at this moment in time. You look at all the expiring deals on the Celtics, right? Or now, I mean, now you have Simons as an expiring, which Niang beforehand wasn't expiring. But the expiring deals you have on the Celtics, you have Anthony Simons and technically you have Garza, Minot, Chris Boucher. They're all 1-year deals. All those contracts. The Celtics, they could have some money to spend in free agency next summer. And if the Celtics do have some money to spend, a name could come into the roster next year that might bring some level of the same impact as maybe a guy like Derek White. Maybe that's a little lofty to expect out of a random free agent, but somebody maybe again not to the caliber of Derek White, but a starting level player or even a guy off the bench who you'd consider, oh, maybe he can start on some nights, or he's a sixth man of the year candidate, how good he is off the bench. That's where the Celtics, I don't want to say need to be in the future, but those are likely the paths they're looking at now, where we're all the way back in 2021 again. The Celtics coming off the 2021 season, I I I remember that very well. Okay, I remember the 36-36 record very well. Covered that whole season. It was one of the worst seasons to cover because one week you thought, "Oh, the Celtics they're competitive," and then the next week you went, "How is this a lottery team? What's going on here?" That's just how the ebb and flow of the 21 season went. But that summer, the Celtics, asset-wise, didn't have too much on their roster. A lot of unproven young guys, as we see now, very relatable to back then. They had the core foundation. You had Brown, Tatum, in place for the Celtics back then, and even at that moment in time, the Celtics had Kemba Walker as well. We all know Kemba Walker was shipped off for Al Horford, but that summer the Celtics needed to obtain assets. Right, another sentence that falls victim to the missing front tooth again. It happens on a 2-hour life. It happens every once in a while. But obtaining assets, right? The Celtics that summer, it was just about signing talent or obtaining talent for little to nothing. The Celtics traded away Moses Brown, who was an unproven NBA player, and I don't want to say a complete nobody because people knew about him, but he was a player who wasn't in anybody's rotation. They traded him away for Josh Richardson, who was in somebody's rotation, right, in the Dallas Mavericks rotation at the time. Then they go and sign Dennis Schroeder, right? The Celtics signed Dennis Schroeder to a mid-level exception deal when he's easily worth $10 million plus at that time, and his market dried up, and the Celtics ink him for a mid-level exception deal. The Celtics also ink Enes Kanter to a minimum deal. So the Celtics were just about gathering talent that summer and just gathering assets, right? 2021, the Celtics went into that summer with we don't have anything, right? We don't have anything valuable. The Celtics went out and actually secured valuable assets for cheap and valuable players for cheap, and eventually parlayed those players into bigger deals later on in time, in which created the championship team. So the Celtics are back in that pattern, right? We're back in the 20. I hate to say it, we haven't even gone through the 21 season. Right now, where the Celtics are, we are in the 2020 off season. We are in the 2020 off season going into the 21 season. That's where the Celtics are right now. If you want to compare it to any offseason or anything in the recent past where they were building with Brown and Tatum to that championship team, the Celtics are in the middle of the 2020 offseason going into the 21 season, in which was a complete disaster. However, that next year in that summer, Celtics started to regain talent and then eventually mobilized that talent, parlayed that talent into the championship team, in which we saw in 2024. And the Celtics did that over the course of 2022 and 2023. As we know, those were when all the big moves happened. That's where the Celtics are right now. And you would say maybe hopefully the Celtics, it doesn't take them 3 years again. But even if it does, that's a better outcome than never winning the championship ever again. But
I get what you're saying, but also this season, I don't want to put away all hope because, and I know you're not, but I don't want to put away all hope for the season because
first,
I feel like the assets that
hope
we
for
have
what? Hope for what?
At
Winning a
least a playoff
championship?
run. I'm not saying a championship. I'm saying a playoff run.
Well,
At least
see,
a
if
playoff.
we're
At
not
least
talking
a playoff run.
championships, it's like, what
I'm
is
not.
the conversation even about? Like, come on, like that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, I
Where
mean,
I'm
we
going,
just talked about it
okay,
the other day with how I know different sport, different team. Cardinals pulled it off with the most mid team in existence. I'm
that's
not saying that
baseball. That's no basketball. I'm telling you right now, the better team wins every series. Okay, the better team wins every and even in series where you go like say last year, right? The Pacers they knock off the Cavs and they knock off the Knicks. The Knicks seeding wise were better than the Pacers, but those series, right? You go back and look at them. The Cavs were seen as the better team as the Pacers, but the Pacers were actually the better team in the series. At the end of the season, the Pacers were better than the Celtics. The Knicks and the Celtics, that was a big upset. But the Knicks, if you watch the film, the Knicks are out-rebounding the Celtics like crazy in that series. The Celtics can't hit a three-point shot. I mean, it is that series. The Knicks are just simply outplaying the Celtics in multiple facets of the game, and they're just the better team. Now, that goes along with your point in saying, yes, a team can become better at that time of year and go on a run. But if there are legitimately better teams than the Celtics out there playing better at that time,
No
Celtics
shot.
aren't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. But I will say, this has been fun. This is going to bring us to the end of this edition of Celtics.
It's been a fun summer.
Folks, can I, first of all, I said earlier, did I say in this live I was going to try to keep it at an hour and a half? Didn't happen.
You didn't say that.
Right?
I
Didn't happen. Didn't happen. We're going to try yet again in another live later this week to keep it under 2 hours, folks. We'll give you a live that you can watch under 2 hours, right? Like I want that to happen for everybody out there, okay? I just want it to happen. But that is going to bring us to the end of this edition to CTW Live. The Celtics, of course, inking Chris Boucher to a 1-year, $3.3 million deal and trading away Georges Niang to the Utah Jazz, his former team. Doing a deal, dealing with Danny Ainge. I'm just saying this. Dealing with Danny Ainge has been dangerous in the past. I wouldn't recommend it, Brad. We're noticing there are a lot of Celtics out there in Utah all of a sudden. Jaden Springer's not in Utah, but he was. Steve Mikhailou, Georges Niang, he was a Celtic for 1 month, but now not anymore. Now a member of the Utah Jazz. He is now a Jazz. Doesn't have the same name as Celtic. Now he's a Jazz.
But now they got to figure out how to pronounce his first name. So I mean, it's not on us now.
I'm sure the Jazz fan base, if they exist, will be able to do that one. That being said, that's going to do it for us here on CTW Live. I'm your host, Seamus Zarlingo. Alongside of me tonight, Carson Engine Throne. And as I always say, thank you all for watching. Oh, and also do not forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube page. Do not forget to follow Celtics.everyday on Instagram, Celtics Nation Rise on Instagram, Celtics Talk Weekly on Instagram as well. And don't forget to go check out the Celtics Nation Rise YouTube page. Did we get every plug in this time? Every time I have to ask, did we get every plug? I think. And CI Clips, right? CI Clips. Carson and
CI_Clips. Go check out the Chris Boucher edit, the newest Celtic.
100%. However, that's going to do it for us here tonight from Seamus and Carson. Thank you all for watching. And as we always say, go Celtics.
Go Celtics.